a Blitz game where,
Well, it's
both totally lost control, and it's no idea what we should expect from this one. Peter Svidler is white. He has to win. If he wins, there will be an Armageddon game, which will definitely decide the World Cup. If he doesn't win, then Sergey Karjakin is the winner of the World Cup. So there they go.
And e4 once again, and e5. Yeah, when Karjakin needs a draw, he's happy to play e5. So, and Gioco Piano is played. So c3, knight f6, d3, d6, knight bd2, castles, h3. So opting for the line VE played against Peter Svidler. So this time Peter plays it with white. So knight e7. And there was the other way around, because VE went for early bishop g5. Well, Peter takes his time to think. Well, I know that's a bit puzzling. What was wrong with one knight f3, the move which brought him a couple of victories with white pieces, and then his attempts to play e4 and to play this Marozzi structure when in the games when he needed a draw really were not successful at all. So openings wise, Svidler won 2 games with white when he started with knight f3. Karjakin won 2 games with white when he started with knight f3. So
should be a good move.
Yeah. So knight e7 and white castles. So we are getting one of the usual positions in Gioco Piano. So now knight g6 perhaps. Yes, knight g6, bishop b3. Well, I wonder if bishop b3 is needed, because usually they do play bishop b3 in order to avoid knight a5, but knight already went to g6. So anyway, we might be transposed to something usual. Bishop b3. Well, at least a good thing for white that, well, there is no option of immediate exchanges in the center, so pieces are kept on the board, and obviously the pressure on both players is that high. a6. Yes, now we're gonna have one of the popular positions. Bishop will retreat to a7, so rook e1, bishop to a7, yes, knight f1, and then something like bishop e6, knight g3 is possible. So reaching a well-known position, and well, basically both of them know how to play that one. But compared to the usual lines, it seems like black saved the tempo on h7, h6. I don't know. I mean, if he can play without h7, h6, so it's bishop e6. Then say one of the moves would be bishop c2, and then black will have to play h6 perhaps to avoid knight g5. d4 is played by Peter Svidler, so he didn't bother to. So bishop b3, queen b3. Now possible sources of counterplay for black will be connected with the relative weakness of an e4 pawn. So queen c8, knight g3 was played. So at some point black might want to play rook e8 and then to take on d4, and e4 will be a target. Otherwise something with c6, d5 comes into mind as well. Rook e8 is played. Bishop g5. So therefore usually they go h6 to avoid bishop g5. So knight d7, knight f5. Peter starts jumping. Well, black's position obviously is rock solid, so you are not getting there that easily, but well, there are chances obviously. So after h6, white will be delighted to take on h6, obviously, and then take h6 once again, take on f7, getting 3 pawns, very sharp position. Then knight f8, played by Sergey Karjakin. So once again, some options of sacrifice offered for Peter Svidler. Bishop f6, bishop h6. No, h4. H4, and then if h6 is played, then he's going to go for it. Bishop takes, and he's threatening h5. Well, it might be that position is not that pleasant for black, in fact. Knight e6 is one of the options. But then perhaps white continues with h5 nevertheless. Some troubles for Karjakin. He's 1 minute down, 2:45 versus 3:48 for Svidler. So I wouldn't really exclude the possibility of game number 11.
But he hits back once again. H6, H5 he's played.
H6, and Peter went for H5, so he's not taking on H6. Hg5, Hg6, knight takes, knight g5, and how do you defend f7? That's the question. How do you defend f7? It's either queen d7 or rook. Queen d7.
Queen d7, that's what he chooses.
Yes. And then, well, if only white could bring the queen over there, so I'd say c4, and then if black takes, then queen h3 seemingly almost wins the game. No, knight f8. No, I mean, there is a threat of knight h6 winning the queen, and there is a threat of queen h7, but knight f8 pariah both of them, so even this one doesn't work. But after c4, obviously, black is not forced to take on d4, so there might be something else. But it's certainly an idea for Svidler to bring the queen back to an h-file, so that's what he's trying to make work. And once again, perhaps if he's g3, one of the possible moves, obviously.
So he wants to get the rook there?
I thought of rook a d1, in fact. So g3, black plays d5, so therefore rook a d1, let's say to have a rook in the center would come in handy in this case. d5, then queen takes, pawn takes. And, well, things are getting simplified, and white did cut an extra pawn, but it might be not enough. Black gets the bishop, black can take on d4. So what happens if black takes on d4? That's the question. Rook a d8, played by Sergey Karjakin, feels like a good move. So he wants to take on d5, and if c4 is played, then black regains the balance with e takes d4. Not a lot you can do in this case. Well, but c4, perhaps the only move which keeps the game going. Otherwise, how do you... Yeah, feels like... No, king g2. He's trying... Perhaps he still tries to get the rook there. Is that possible? I mean, to h7, rook h1, rook h7, and then black will be in danger. If black takes there, then it leaves a pin on a e-file, and something like f4 might be played. Then, yeah. So the game is still sharp. The game is still sharp. After king g2, rook d5 is played,
and f4.
And f4 is played. So now something like f6 has to be considered for black.
That's what
f6,
he does.
that's what he does. And then it's important. I know in fact you can play knight f3. I thought knight f3 would be a blunder after e4, but you still have knight h4. Then knight e4 played by Peter Svidler after f6. Knight e4, rook goes back to d8. And now it seems, well, I'm sorry, but it seems all over because black forces all the exchanges in the center, and he is in fact better prepared, while Svidler still has an extra minute, but might be not enough. So f takes, takes, and d5. Yeah, okay, that's chance for a positional counterplay. Rook d5, knight h6 check. Well, that's tricky.
That's tricky.
Well, then I have to say, I mean, I was a bit Too
King
fast,
F8.
yes, too conclusive. So king f8, now couple of checks available for white.
Yep, rook f1.
Rook f1, no, it's
Knight f1.
It's not that clear. So knight f4, pawn takes, and then g takes h6 and f5, king f7. It's a crazy game. Really, I mean, it's a crazy game. Now, objectively speaking, once again, black is doing fine, absolutely, but no, perhaps more than fine, because rook g8 is a very unpleasant threat to face. Rook a d1, yes, you want to stop rook d3. You really want to stop rook d3, so now after check, at least white has king f3. Check, that's what he's going to do, king f3. But then c6,
c4,
c4, rook to d4, rook takes. Well, still Svidler keeps it 2 minutes for him.
So he takes with the pawn.
He takes with the pawn, rook to h1. White is still active, so still some chance. Well, rook h8 and rook g1 this time. But what do you do after rook g8? After rook g8, rook d8 was played. So with clear intention to move the pawn forward,
f6.
f6. And now on rook g8 there is knight d6 followed by rook e1. All of a sudden white wins in this case. So f6 threatening rook g7, and well, I won't be claiming that black is in trouble, but at least it gets us somewhere. So king e6, rook to g7, rook d7. Yeah, that might be a problem for Peter Svidler to face.
That is very
rook
cold-blooded.
g7, yeah, that's a very cold-blooded defense indeed. You can't really make progress after that one.
So
Yeah, so if you take, yes, this f7 pawn is nowhere near the promotion. Otherwise, yeah. And then d pawn starts to move. So king e6, and then, yeah, perhaps there was nothing after king e6. Yes, and it looks over once again.
once again,
So okay, it looked over the previous game when Peter Svidler blundered the rook, but this time there will be no rooks to blunder. Rook g8, okay, at least trying to.
and he pushes.
Well, d3, rook e8 check, but what do you do after king f7, rook h8? Well, hoping for d2, but even in this case, you can't really do much. King e6 back. Then d2 is a threat all the time. So he takes on h6. d2 is played, and it's f7 check. Well, and d1 comes with a check, so now something like king e5. King e5 is good enough, in fact, because you'll have to take there. King e7, f7, king e7. Well, that's a painful one. Yeah. That's a painful one, because d1 comes with a check. And
that was it.
Resigns. Yes, that was an amazing fight. That was an insane tiebreak, and no draws out of 10 games.
6-4 for Sergey Karjakin. Sergey Karjakin wins the 2015 World Cup after a crazy final and an even crazier
tremendous comebacks. Yes. And the tiebreak was crazy. And
Sergey Karjakin, who was down 2-0 after 2 classical games, fought back.
No one would bet a penny on his
No.
on his
Everyone
victory.
was talking about 3 days.